Hi everyone, today we've got a very exciting interview with former mixed martial artist Andre Winner. For those tuning in, Andre has fought in a number of the world's top MMA organizations, including the UFC, and was a finalist on season 9 of The Ultimate Fighter. Andre, thanks for coming on. First, I wanted to ask you, how are you?
I'm all good. I'm just chilling.
Nice. So our first question today is, what inspired you to take up MMA, and were there any key individuals which influenced you in that decision?
I've always been into sport. I've always been into superhero stuff, action movies. So I guess I was always inspired by the TV. Obviously, I loved Van Damme's, Jackie Chan's, Bruce Lee's, all that kind of stuff. Um, as far as any particular fighters, no, obviously there's been loads of great fighters. But to be honest with you, when I first got into fight, I didn't even know that I could be a fighter. You know, it was just something that I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed training. And it wasn't until later on, because I was a bit of a late bloomer with it. I didn't start MMA until I was like 22, 23. So I didn't really, it's not like I have now, where you have lots of fighters, and obviously UFC is an established promotion. So I didn't really have, like, outside of like I say, other sporting heroes, so like, say, for instance, Chris Eubanks or Nigel Benz and people like that, but not so much as MMA wise.
At what point did you realize then that this was potentially a career that you wanted to pursue?
Um, like I said, I'd heard of the UFC, and I used to go into, most people are going to be too young for this, but like video box and places like that, you know, where you used to rent your VHS videos from. So I used to see like on up on the higher shelves, like with the 18 section, and that's when I was younger, like 12 or whatever. So I'd seen these things, but I never knew where to go for it to train or how to get into it. So it wasn't, like I said, until my early 20s where I found somewhere where I could actually learn some skills.
So when you were fighting, what did your ideal training camp look like?
So I think obviously it changes over time, but I just think as a fighter, as a martial artist, should always be in the gym, should always be training, improving yourself, and just working on yourself, because there's always stuff you can improve on and learn. And especially with MMA and like jiu-jitsu, but I just think you should be in the gym all the time. Your intensity may go up and down depending on how far you are from a fight, and depending how far you are from a fight, your SNC might change a little bit. And like I say, your intensity or your specific sparring sessions. But for the most part, I think you should always be training all year round. Doesn't always have to be a hard session, but I think you should always be active and be in the gym.
And then before a fight, what sort of thoughts are going through your mind in those final minutes before entering the cage?
Obviously, different fights, you have different thoughts. Some fights, well, near enough at every fight, you'll have that little doubter in your head. They're trying to tell you something bad's going to happen, but you got to put that to the side. Generally, I think about the task at hand, what I need to do. So instead of concentrating on all what could or whatever be, the ifs and buts, just focus on a few key objectives that you want to try and implement in the fight. Or if you don't want to think about the fight too hard, what I used to do sometimes as well, obviously depending on the mood I was in, sometimes I just want to recreate that feeling of winning and going out, enjoying my night, clubbing, partying afterwards, and I just want that feeling again. So instead of thinking too much about the fight, I just think about, I want to go out there and put whoever away and get that feeling again.
Yeah. Was that a technique to get rid of nerves as well before fights?
Yeah, so I mean, you can't help but think of the fight, and obviously, the more time you got on your hands, the more time you got to ask yourself, "Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens?" And obviously, like I said, there's always a little man in your head that's going to come in and try and spread doubt. So sometimes having too much time on your hand and nothing to do is not good for you, because you start overthinking. So yeah, sometimes it can be a good calming way. Like I say, if you sit there thinking about all the things that can go wrong, yes, you'll get nervous. If you think about just the things that you need to do, simple objectives, or like I say, trying to think about the fight too much, think about wanting to get that feeling of celebrating, of winning, of achieving, thinking more about those things than thinking about all the other things that could be. That kind of takes away a little bit of the nerves. And obviously, one big part of your nerves as well is knowing that you've done enough in your camp. You've done all that you can do. You're in the best possible place to be. So, yeah, that gives you a lot of confidence as well.
And obviously, it takes like a special individual to be able to fight professionally. What kind of mindset and mentality do you believe is required to succeed as a professional fighter?
You know what, you say that, and I used to think that, well, anyone can do it, but like you say, not everyone will. And I think it takes a bit of a combination of a few things. You got to have a bit of stubbornness, a bit of pride about you. You got to have that competitive feeling. You got a little bit of an ego to feel as though if they can do it, I can do it. You know, why not me? That's what I always used to look at it. Somebody's got to be somebody. Everyone's going to be somebody. You know, why not me? You know what I mean? So um, that you got to have that bit of confidence. Um, like I said, there's a few. Obviously, you got the physicalities and everything like that as well, and you got to have the want to do it. But like I say, I think you got to have a little bit of ego, and you got to be a touch crazy, just a little bit. Don't have to be a lot crazy, not serial killer crazy, but just a touch crazy. On fight day, I mean, normally you get like at some point leading up to the fight, normally within the last couple of weeks of a fight, that, like I say, you get that little man and you get like a bit of an adrenaline dump, and some of the nerves kick in. Once you get over that hump, you're all right. Sometimes you might be on fire day. I remember the first time I went and fought, I thought to myself, I looked in the mirror and I said, "Why am I doing this? Why don't you go home? You don't have to do this."
Yeah.
But so you'll always have those little bits of doubt and stuff like that. But it's just part and parcel of it. You learn how to turn that nervousness into a bit more excitement.
Would you say that comes with experience?
For the most part, I'd say, you got some people, obviously we're all individuals. Some people might thrive on that, and that might be something that they're at home with. For most people, I'd say yes, it would come with experience, learning how to settle those nerves and looking. And this is a big thing with fighting as well. Sometimes when we fight not to lose rather than to win. So it's important of having the mindset of going out there to win something. And normally those people who have that mindset of going out there to achieve something, to win something, usually do well, because they go out and try and make it theirs rather than, like I say, fighting not to lose is a big difference.
Yeah.
Because you'll be happy just to do enough when you're fighting not to lose. When you're fighting to win, you'll go out there and you'll give it your everything.
And looking back, the achievement of getting to the final of The Ultimate Fighter, still a very popular show at the minute as well. I think 33 seasons they've now done. What did that experience do for you as a fighter in person?
Obviously, what it did for me as a fighter and a person, I never did that much for me as a fighter. Because obviously we only had X amount of time. So, but it was good because we had a good quality lads around us who always got good training, obviously good coaching. But I don't know if it changed me much as a fighter. As a person, obviously, it gave you a little bit more, maybe feeling of credibility or self-credibility, I guess. Because obviously when you're fighting or you start out fighting, like I said, I didn't know I could turn out to be a fighter. So then to end up in the UFC, and you kind of what would be cemented the feeling that I was good enough. Because obviously when you first go out to fight, there's a big gap between yourself and being a professional fighter at the highest level. So getting there and, like I say, cementing that feeling, it's quite gratifying.
And your coach was Michael Bisping on the show. What lessons did you take away from him? And do you have how was that experience of working with Michael Bisping?
Mike was a good coach, good guy. As far, like I say, there was nothing that we did that was, or that I can remember, was massively kind of different. He just pushed us hard, made us work hard. Mike's has got incredible cardio. Even when I was at my fittest, and he was out of shape. He wasn't even far behind us. Mike's a beast, man. It just Mike's work ethic, to be fair. Mike's the epitome of hard work.
And going into then getting the UFC contract, what was the most memorable moment of your career?
Most memorable moment of my career. Probably UFC 105, getting my knockout win there. Just simply because I'd lost in the Ultimate Fighter. I was a little bit down on myself. I wanted to show what I could do. Obviously, it was a show for the UK fans, if you like, and to deliver in front of them. Obviously, felt good. So probably that moment.
And then, what was the most challenging moment of your career?
Most challenging moment of career. I've had a couple losses that burnt me. And a couple of losses that burnt me that I was annoyed with myself, and I thought, nah, I can't be asked to do this anymore. So I've had a couple of those, but I'd probably say those couple of losses and where it burns you, when it hits your heart a little bit, pisses you off.
Yeah. So how do you personally deal with those setbacks and losses? Like, how do you bounce back from them?
It's never easy because, like I say, with fighting, there's a bit of an ego thing, and you kind of think you're invincible until you're not, and then you kind of, well, for most people, you want to be a champion, you want to go undefeated, you want to be the greatest ever, that kind of vibe. And obviously, when that stops, and then maybe you've had a few losses, then you start thinking to yourself, "Oh, what am I doing this for now?" So that can be tough sometimes to know what you're doing it for. But I think the biggest thing that helps you bounce back from losses or from tough times in a career is just getting back into the gym. To be honest with you, getting back to the gym and just gaining your confidence back in the gym, because the best of fighters lose. So, you know what I mean? Especially with MMA, because there's so much that can happen in the sport. Even the best of the guys lose, especially if you roll the dice enough times. You know, you're fighting often and you're fighting the best guys in a top promotion, or you're the champion and you're fighting the next best guys. You know what I mean? At some point, for most people, you're going to get that bump. But, you know, with that, you know, most people will get that. So you're not on your own in it, you know. So, and it's just that self-belief and that just that desire that you want to still want to achieve something.
So would you use that fuel maybe then from a loss and then take it into the gym whenever?
Oh yeah, definitely. I often felt like I fought better once I had a loss, because then I'd be pissed off and I want to go and prove something or show something, and I'd probably fight better after that. Because I wanted to go out there and, you know, like, gain my respect back, if you like. So you're more motivated. Sometimes when some comfort isn't good for you, especially as a fighter, and I'm very easy to get comfortable. So that was the biggest thing for me. Like I say, when you're comfortable, you're in content. And when you're content, you're not hungry. And as a fighter, you need to be hungry. And it's hard to stay hungry.
You talk about how you can't be comfortable as a fighter. Would you say that translated then almost into your own personal life? Like how, like maybe lessons and like characteristics you developed from martial arts, which you've now taken into other areas of your life?
Characteristics from martial arts that I've taken into my life, I don't really. Is either do something about it or don't do nothing at all. Just put up or shut up sometimes in life, you know. So, in fighting, you go out there and fight, right? There's not like an in between. It's either you go out there and fight, or you can lie down for somebody and get beat up. And it's the same thing in life. You go out there and do your best. Sometimes it doesn't go your way, but you know, you get back up and you crack back on. So it gives you a strong. One great thing about one great thing about martial arts, and especially combative sports and stuff like that, is it builds character. Helps you to learn how to deal with with pressure and stress, and being able to still try and complete tasks, or still, keeping a cool head. And it gives you a lot of moral fiber. Well, not moral fiber, sorry, a lot of not moral fiber. What's it called? Um, can't think of the word right now. But basically, it just gives you a strong personality. So they're the two of the main things that I learned through fighting that I take through in life.
And then, who was the toughest opponent then that you faced, and what was it about them that made it so difficult?
Toughest opponent. I don't know if there's a toughest opponent. I fought some good guys. All differently skilled. I'd say probably Mateus Gamrot. He was very hard to hit, very hard to find, well-timed shots. So he was a frustratingly hard guy to fight. Obviously, my teammate Ross Pearson, he was a well-rounded fighter. Anthony Njoku, he was a good kickboxer. Saul Rogers, a good grappler. I know which was my toughest. Nick Lentz, that was a physically tough fight, even though it was very dull and boring. That was physically tough. Same with Yusuf Razaev in ACA, where I thought he was very physically tough as well, very physically strong. So I don't know about toughest. Probably the fight that I came out looking the worst was probably my fight with Anthony Njoku. Face was a bit busted up, but toughest, I'd probably say something like Nick Lentz or the Yusuf Razaev fight, because they was both. Well, Nick wasn't that strong, but Razaev was strong, like super strong. I thought he'd get tired in the third round, but no, that kid was strong. So
I mean,
that was quite physically tough.
A name which stood out for me massively was Gamrot, because
Gamrot. He's a very good fighter. He keeps his distance well. He knows when to burst. He's got a good fight IQ, and he can wrestle well. Obviously, grapple all around, yeah. But mainly his wrestling, his timing on his shots are really good, and he's a good chain wrestler as well.
I mean, do you prefer grappling or the striking part of the game?
I like it all. I'm too deep in the game now just to be one-sided.
Yeah. What about in terms of watching?
I think you always favour a little bit more striking. I think even grapplers love knockouts. Everyone loves a knockout. So, I enjoy both, but if I have to go one way or the other, it'd be striking.
Fair enough. Yeah, I always try and big up the grappling side of the game, even though I do secretly prefer the knockouts. But because I've been training jiu-jitsu for quite a while, I always have to try and praise when grapplers do well in their fights. So, how now you're coaching, looking after, I assume, younger fighters with their own dreams and aspirations and goals in martial arts. How have you found that transition into coaching and that sort of responsibility of developing the next generation of young fighters?
Oh, I didn't look at it that big, but yeah, I coach younger fighters. We've got a couple promising fighters, like we touched on earlier. He's not for everybody, but we've always got good guys coming through. So it's always an internally good feeling to be able to pass on your skills and to see other people get success from it.
And I see some fighters have probably gone into their own amateur or professional fights as well. Have you cornered any of them?
Say that again, please.
Have you cornered any of the fighters that you've coached?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
How's that experience been?
It's good. It can be frustrating sometimes, but good for the most part.
Nice. And what would your advice be to young fighters maybe watching this that want to try and make it at a professional level?
My thing is the same that everybody else does. Believe in yourself. Train hard, train consistently. Nothing beats hard work.
And would you say, is there anything they should know perhaps about the MMA industry, which maybe is sort of looked over, maybe when they have like rose tinted glasses almost when looking at the glitz and glamour of the UFC and things like that?
Well, most fighters are not making that much money. So I say to the guys, like, you got to think about it. For the first 7 years, you're probably going to be at a deficit because you probably need to train for 2 or 3 years on a decent level to be a decent amateur. Then you'd want to probably a couple of years. It depends if you've not come from a high level background or something already. But say you're just starting out, you need a few years to get to a decent level as an amateur, a couple of years on the amateur circuit to get some fights, to gain good experience. Then you go pro, you probably do a couple of years on a lower level. And then, I mean, you're already 7 years deep on money deficit there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You got to think that your fight career is a short window as well.
Mm.
So you're already 7 years in. Say a fight career is 20 years. Yeah, you're already 7 years in. I mean, you might have started training earlier than that, so you might have a little bit more time. But I mean, like I say, you're already 7 or so years in. Saying if all goes well and there's no injuries, there's no ups and downs or anything. So that's before you even get to a bigger show. And then even at a bigger show, I mean, say you're earning, I don't know, say you get UFC and you go straight away and you get like, say, 15 and 15 or something like that, yeah? But say you only fight 3 times a year,
Mm.
and then after tax, and you're changing that from USD to pounds, and then, you got to pay everybody else and your training fees and all that kind of stuff. By the end of it, you probably got less than half.
Yeah.
So, so until you become a household name or you fight for titles or, you know what I mean, you're not going to be making that much. I mean, some people can make more, but at the same time, it's not like I say, the top guys will make some good money, but not the lower level guys.
Mm.
So you
And
have
that's like
to,
the top 1%.
yeah. So you have to be willing to take that. Well, a little bit of a gamble, obviously, depending on how good you believe in yourself or how good you are, and if you can be that household name. I mean, Conor McGregor smashed it, but you got a lot of guys that have done well. But obviously, Conor's the main guy who's made the most money, you would think.
And looking at the sort of MMA scene at the minute, how big the UFC's gotten and things like that, what do you make of sort of the sport, the state of the sport right now?
It's good. I mean, I've become a bit of a casual fan, so I just turn it on every now and then when I get the time. Um, it's good for the UFC,
Yeah.
but I still think the fire pay should come up. I don't think the fires get looked after as well as what they could have been. So there was the UFC lawsuit that happened not too long back, and then I learned quite a bit. Obviously, reading through the chats and all that kind of stuff. So that was quite interesting. See all the not say what goes on behind the scenes, but there's a bit more in depth into the sport and the laws and stuff like that.
Mm. Yeah. Fair enough. And then looking on a lighter note, on looking ahead into the new year, what are some of just your goals now, personally or professionally as a coach, going into 2026?
Goals as a coach, just
Or
do the
just
best I can
in
do.
general?
Well, I just do the best I can do. I don't really stress too much or anything like that. I just go out there, do the best I can do, and whatever it is, it is. But obviously, as far as what I want to happen is obviously my guys go out there, perform well, do well, get wins, and keep improving.
Yeah, nice. Andre Winner, it's been a pleasure interviewing you today. Thanks again for coming on, and all the best with the coaching and everything.
Yeah, not a problem, man. Anytime. Thank you.